Most men don't fear being alone. They fear being left. Not the silence itself, but what the silence seems to mean. They fear the unanswered message. The emotional distance. The moment they realize they care more than the other person does. And in that fear, they begin to shrink. They explain too much. They give more than they should. They hold on to what is already slipping away. This video is not about how to keep someone. It is about how men lose themselves trying. Because there is a version of a man who no longer fears loss. He does not chase. He does not beg. He does not negotiate his worth. And paradoxically, he becomes the man others are afraid to lose. These are not habits learned from confidence. They are forged through disappointment, silence, and truth. If you've ever felt weaker the more you tried to hold on, this video is for you. Stay. Welcome to the channel, Stoic Love Wisdom. This is where lessons about love will help you better understand this complex emotion. In today's video, we will learn together about 5 habits of men who no longer fear losing their children. These are things that can change the way you perceive love in life. Be prepared because the secrets and insights you are about to discover may make you look back at yourself and the relationships around you. Before starting, find a quiet space, put on your headphones and relax. Let your mind completely immerse in these shares and enjoy every wonderful moment. Are you ready to discover new things about love? Let's start this journey with us right now. Habit number 1, he stops trying to please anyone. There was a time when I believed love was something you earned. You showed up more. You explained yourself better. You bent a little further each time. And if someone stayed, you told yourself it was because you had done enough. That belief cost me years. A man who still fears loss believes that affection is conditional. He learns early that approval feels like safety, and disapproval feels like danger. So he adapts. He softens his words. He swallows his instincts. He becomes agreeable, not because he is kind, but because he is afraid. When a man no longer fears losing someone, the first habit that changes is this. He stops trying to be liked. Not because he becomes cold. Not because he becomes arrogant. But because he finally understands the difference between connection and submission. I used to think saying yes made me loving. In reality, it made me invisible. Pleasing others trains them to see you as adjustable. And once a man is adjustable, he is never fully respected. Stoicism teaches a simple truth. You are responsible for your character, not for others' comfort. The moment a man internalizes this, his behavior shifts, quietly, but permanently. He no longer rushes to explain himself when misunderstood. He no longer edits his opinions to avoid tension. He no longer performs emotional labor to maintain peace at the expense of self-respect. He speaks plainly. He listens carefully. And when his values conflict with someone else's expectations, he chooses alignment over approval. This is where many people misunderstand him. They say, "You've changed." What they mean is, you are no longer predictable. A man who fears loss reacts emotionally to rejection. A man who does not fear loss observes it. He knows that being liked is not proof of truth. And being disliked is not proof of failure. In relationships, this habit becomes especially visible. He does not text just to reassure someone who is already pulling away. He does not apologize for emotions he did not create. He does not negotiate his boundaries to keep someone comfortable. Not because he lacks empathy, but because he understands that self-betrayal is not love. When you stop pleasing others, something uncomfortable happens at first. Some people leave. They were never attached to you. They were attached to the version of you that complied. A Stoic man accepts this without resentment. Loss, to him, is no longer proof that he did something wrong. Sometimes, loss is simply proof that he finally did something right. There is a quiet confidence that replaces anxiety when this habit forms. He doesn't scan conversations for approval anymore. He doesn't replay his words at night wondering if he said too much or too little. He trusts his intent, and he stands by his choices. This doesn't make him rigid. On the contrary. Because he is no longer defending an image, he becomes more open to truth. He can admit mistakes without collapsing. He can change his mind without losing himself. He can love deeply without attaching his worth to being chosen. This is Stoic love. Not attachment disguised as devotion. Not sacrifice disguised as virtue. But presence without fear. When a man stops trying to please, his silence gains weight. His no becomes as meaningful as his yes. And his affection, when given, feels deliberate, not desperate. People sense this immediately. Some are unsettled by it. Others are drawn to it. Because deep down, everyone knows. A man who does not need to be liked is a man who cannot be controlled. And here is the paradox few talk about. The moment you stop chasing approval, you become someone worth choosing. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally stood still. Love is not only about happy moments, but also about challenges that help us realize our inner strength. It is through difficulties that we learn patience, tolerance, and how to love without losing ourselves. This is also the reason why I share stories here, so that you can find calmness and wisdom in your journey of love. If you feel these words touch you, please take a second to click like to spread this message. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe with the notification bell, to always be the first to receive new shares. Don't forget to leave a comment below, share your feelings or a lesson you learned after listening to this story. Each line you share is a way for us to connect and accompany each other. Now, get ready, because the next part will bring you even deeper insights. Habit number 2, he becomes calm in silence and distance. When a man still fears loss, silence feels dangerous. A delayed reply becomes a threat. Distance feels like rejection. An emotional space triggers imagination, usually the destructive kind. I know this state well. It is not love. It is surveillance disguised as care. A man who fears losing someone is always listening for changes in tone. Always checking timing. Always trying to read between lines that may not exist. Silence becomes something to fix. Distance becomes something to close. And in that constant reaching, he reveals the very thing that weakens him. His need to be reassured. When a man no longer fears loss, silence loses its power. Not because he stops caring, but because he stops assuming absence is a verdict. Stoicism teaches us that suffering often comes not from events, but from the meaning we assign to them. Silence, on its own, means nothing. Distance, by itself, explains nothing. The unseasoned man fills the gap with fear. The experienced man allows the gap to exist. This habit doesn't appear suddenly. It is built through disappointment, reflection, and self-honesty. At some point, a man realizes. If someone wants to stay connected, they will. And if they don't, no amount of emotional chasing will change that. So he stops chasing. He doesn't double text to relieve his anxiety. He doesn't demand explanations for emotional shifts. He doesn't ask, "Did I do something wrong?" every time energy changes. He waits. Not as a tactic. Not as manipulation. But as alignment with reality. Because the truth is simple. Interest does not need to be chased, and loyalty does not need to be begged for. This calm unnerves people. Those who are used to emotional pursuit interpret his stillness as indifference. Those who rely on attention to feel powerful feel exposed. But the Stoic man understands something crucial. His peace is more valuable than immediate reassurance. He does not interpret silence as abandonment. He interprets it as information. If someone pulls away and never returns, he does not collapse trying to retrieve them. He accepts the message. Distance reveals priorities more clearly than words ever could. A man who fears loss argues with distance. A man who does not fear loss learns from it. There is dignity in not reacting. Not every pause deserves a response. Not every absence requires pursuit. Not every emotional shift needs to be discussed into submission. The experienced man knows this. When you rush to close every gap, you train others to control your emotional state. And once your peace is externally regulated, you are no longer sovereign. So he lets silence breathe. He goes on with his routines. He trains. He works. He builds. His life does not shrink when someone steps back. This is what makes him different. He does not wait by the phone. He does not adjust his schedule to remain available. He does not abandon momentum for uncertainty. And paradoxically, this often brings people back. Not because he played a game, but because he demonstrated stability. People feel safe around someone who is not destabilized by absence. There is also something else that happens internally. When silence no longer scares you, you begin to hear your own thoughts again. You stop drowning intuition with noise. You stop overriding discomfort with distraction. And often, you realize something uncomfortable but necessary. Some connections only survive because you were doing all the emotional work. Silence exposes imbalance. The Stoic man welcomes this clarity. He would rather lose a connection than lose himself trying to maintain it. And when someone does return after distance, he does not reward absence with desperation. He does not interrogate. He does not punish. He observes consistency over time. Because calm does not mean passive. It means selective. This habit changes the power dynamic without intention. Silence no longer weakens him. Distance no longer threatens him. And when someone senses that they cannot provoke anxiety by withdrawing, their leverage disappears. This is not emotional coldness. It is emotional independence. Love, when it arrives, is then a choice, not a necessity. Presence becomes meaningful because it is not forced. Connection deepens because it is not fueled by fear. A man who is calm in silence is a man who has made peace with loss. And a man who has made peace with loss cannot be shaken by uncertainty. Habit number 3, he puts his life first, without apology. There is a moment in a man's life when he realizes something unsettling. The more he rearranged his life for others, the less anyone valued the life he had. I did not learn this from books. I learned it by watching my own calendar slowly empty itself of purpose. When a man fears loss, he organizes his life around availability. He keeps his schedule loose. His priorities flexible. His goals negotiable. Not because he lacks ambition, but because he believes being needed will make him irreplaceable. It never does. A man who no longer fears loss reverses this order. His life comes first. Not his ego. Not his comfort. But his direction. Stoicism is not about detachment from life. It is about commitment to what is within your control. And the only thing fully within a man's control is how he invests his time, energy, and attention. When he puts his life first, his days acquire structure. He trains even when he doesn't feel like it. He works when no one is watching. He builds systems that do not require permission or applause. His routines become non-negotiable. And this is where relationships are tested. Because when a man is centered, He is no longer endlessly accessible. He does not cancel progress to soothe uncertainty. He does not abandon discipline for emotional turbulence. He does not sacrifice momentum to prove devotion. This does not make him selfish. It makes him anchored. A man without an anchor is easily pulled by others' emotions. A man with one remains steady, even in storms. People often mistake this steadiness for emotional distance. But what they are really encountering is a man whose identity is no longer borrowed from the relationship. His sense of worth does not rise and fall with attention. His direction does not collapse when affection fluctuates. He has something to return to, himself. This is why Stoic men appear calm during conflict. They do not experience disagreement as a threat to existence. They experience it as an event, one of many. Their life does not pause for emotional negotiations. And here is the difficult truth most men avoid. When you put someone at the center of your life, you make them responsible for your stability. That burden eventually turns into resentment, on both sides. The Stoic man refuses this arrangement. He loves without making love his foundation. His foundation is purpose, routine, self-mastery. So when love enters his life, it enters a space already standing, not a void asking to be filled. This habit transforms how he shows up in relationships. He does not rush intimacy. He does not chase momentum. He does not accelerate timelines to avoid uncertainty. He allows things to unfold naturally, because his life is already moving forward. If someone chooses to walk alongside him, they add to his life, they do not define it. And if they leave, his direction remains intact. This is not emotional armor. It is emotional sovereignty. There is no apology in this habit. He does not apologize for having goals. He does not apologize for needing solitude. He does not apologize for choosing long-term integrity over short-term closeness. Because he understands something most men learn too late. You cannot build a meaningful life around someone else's presence. Presence is temporary. Character is permanent. And paradoxically, this is what creates attraction. People are drawn to those who are going somewhere, not those who wait. A man who puts his life first is not chasing connection. He is offering alignment. Those who fit will stay. Those who don't will drift away. He accepts both outcomes with the same calm. Because his life does not begin or end with anyone else's decision. It continues. Deliberately, quietly, forward. At this point, you may have seen yourself in the stories above, sometimes weak, sometimes strong, and sometimes not knowing what to do in love. But it is those moments that make us real and worthy of respect. If you feel the same, please click like to let me know you are here, accompanying me. And if you haven't clicked subscribe yet, don't hesitate, because every day I will share more stories and new lessons, to help you have a calmer view of love. Now, let's move on to the final part, where we will touch on deeper things. Habit number 4, he refuses to chase what is leaving. There is a particular kind of pain that teaches this habit. Not sudden loss. Not betrayal. But the slow realization that someone has already left, while still standing in front of you. I've been there. The messages became shorter. The enthusiasm quieter. The effort uneven. And like many men, I tried to fix it. I asked questions that had no honest answers. I gave more when less was being returned. I reached for clarity when the truth was already obvious. That is what fear of loss looks like. You chase confirmation instead of accepting reality. A man who no longer fears loss does something radically different. He stops. Not dramatically. Not resentfully. He simply withdraws his pursuit. Stoicism teaches us that resistance to what is creates suffering. And nothing creates more suffering than chasing what is already moving away. The experienced man understands this instinctively. When energy shifts, he notices. When effort declines, he adjusts. When interest fades, he does not negotiate desire. Because desire cannot be convinced. A man who chases what is leaving is not fighting for love. He is fighting against truth. And truth always wins. So the Stoic man refuses to beg. He does not plead for explanations that will not heal him. He does not try to compete with disinterest. He does not bargain with someone else's uncertainty. He respects choice. Even when it costs him something. This habit requires a deep internal shift. It means accepting that. Not everyone who enters your life intends to stay. Not every connection is meant to be saved. Not every ending is a failure. The man who fears loss believes persistence proves worth. The man who has lived knows better. Persistence in the absence of reciprocity is not loyalty. It is self-abandonment. So he draws a quiet line. Not an ultimatum. Not a threat. Just a boundary enforced through behavior. He gives what is given. He matches effort with effort. And when effort disappears, so does his pursuit. This is where power returns. Not power over others. Power over himself. Chasing gives away leverage. Withdrawing restores dignity. And dignity is not something you can ask for. It is something you demonstrate. Many people interpret this as emotional coldness. They say, if you cared, you would have fought harder. What they don't understand is this. The Stoic man fights for alignment, not attachment. He will fight for honesty. He will fight for mutual respect. He will fight for growth. But he will not fight to be wanted. Because being chosen under pressure is not being chosen at all. There is also courage in this habit. Walking away without closure. Letting silence be the final answer. Accepting that some endings do not come with explanations. The inexperienced man needs answers to heal. The experienced man heals by accepting the absence of them. When the Stoic man stops chasing, something interesting happens. Sometimes the other person returns. Confused by the sudden absence of pursuit. And here is where discipline matters. He does not reopen doors without consistency. He does not reward distance with access. He does not confuse return with change. Because he knows. Distance can be temporary, character is not. And if they do not return, he does not collapse. He grieves privately. He learns quietly. He moves forward deliberately. Loss, to him, is not humiliation. It is information. And information, when accepted, is freedom. This habit marks the point of no return. Once a man learns to stop chasing what is leaving, he never begs again. Not for love. Not for attention. Not for validation. Because he has discovered something stronger than attachment. Self-respect. Habit number 5, he is willing to lose, and that makes him untouchable. Most men believe strength comes from control. Control of outcomes. Control of relationships. Control of how others feel about them. It doesn't. Real strength begins the moment a man accepts that loss is not the enemy. I didn't arrive at this understanding through confidence. I arrived through exhaustion. After enough effort. Enough compromise. Enough fear-driven attachment. At some point, a man realizes something quietly devastating. Everything he was trying to hold on to was already temporary. The man who fears loss builds his identity around avoidance. Avoiding abandonment. Avoiding rejection. avoiding endings. And in doing so, he becomes fragile. Because anything you need in order to feel whole can be taken from you. The Stoic man ends this cycle with a single internal decision. I am willing to lose. Not because he wants to. Not because he is numb. But because he understands reality. Stoicism teaches us to rehearse loss, not to become cold, but to become free from illusion. People change. Feelings shift. Relationships end. Resisting this truth does not preserve love. It corrodes it. When a man is willing to lose, his behavior transforms completely. He does not cling to outcomes. He does not negotiate his values for security. He does not fear walking away from what no longer aligns. And most importantly, he cannot be manipulated through threat of absence. Fear is leverage. Acceptance removes it. This is why a man who is willing to lose becomes untouchable. Not invincible, but uncoercible. You cannot control him with withdrawal. You cannot steer him with uncertainty. You cannot extract compliance by dangling affection. He is not reckless. He still chooses carefully. He still invests deliberately. He still loves deeply. But his love is no longer a liability. Because it is not rooted in fear. There is a quiet authority that comes with this habit. He does not argue with endings. He does not dramatize departures. He does not collapse when something leaves his life. He allows grief, but he does not live in it. Loss becomes a passage, not a prison. This does not make him indifferent. It makes him present. When he is with someone, he is fully there. Because he is not busy trying to secure the future. He understands something rare. The more you try to prevent loss, the less alive you are while things still exist. A man willing to lose experiences relationships more honestly. He listens without anxiety. He loves without bargaining. He speaks truth without calculating the risk of abandonment. And because he is not afraid of the ending, he does not poison the middle. This is the paradox few talk about. People are most drawn to those who are not afraid to walk alone. Not because loneliness is attractive, but because freedom is. A man who is willing to lose does not chase. He does not plead. He does not perform. He chooses. And if the choice is not mutual, he lets go, cleanly. Without resentment. Without bitterness. Without self-betrayal. This is not emotional detachment. It is emotional maturity. By the time a man reaches this habit, he no longer needs protection from loss. Loss no longer defines him. It simply passes through. And in that passing, he remains intact. Conclusion. A man does not become strong the moment he learns how to keep someone. He becomes strong the moment he realizes that losing is not the end of his life. These 5 habits are not techniques. They are not strategies to gain power over others. They are the natural consequences of a man who has faced loss and refused to let fear shape his character. When he stops trying to please, he regains his voice. When silence no longer unsettles him, he regains his peace. When his life comes first, he regains direction. When he refuses to chase what is leaving, he regains dignity. And when he is willing to lose, he regains freedom. This is what Stoic love looks like. Not attachment disguised as devotion. Not sacrifice rooted in fear. But presence without desperation. A man like this does not love loudly. He loves clearly. He does not promise permanence. He offers honesty. And because he is not afraid of endings, he does not destroy himself trying to prevent them. Loss still hurts him. But it does not break him. He understands that everything meaningful in life is temporary. And that this is not a tragedy, but a reason to live fully. When love is chosen freely, it is lighter. When presence is voluntary, it is deeper. And when a man no longer fears being alone, he finally becomes someone worth standing beside. Strength, in the end, is not the ability to hold on. It is the ability to let go, without losing yourself. Thank you for watching the whole video. I hope that today's sharing about love will bring you new perspectives and help you gain valuable lessons. If you find the video useful, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and share it with your loved ones. I am very grateful for your companionship, and hope that each video will help you get closer to a happy and lasting love. See you in the next videos. Wish you a wonderful and inspired day.